Hello everyone, welcome to another Combat Patrol Carnage video. Today we're looking at a 20 issue review. So this is going to cover issues 41 all the way through to 60. So first off, doing things a little differently. I've had a abscess come up on my cheek and I've got a horrible patch on my cheek, so I'm not really up to being on the front of the camera at the moment, but should be back to normal very soon. It's healing up nicely. So yeah, we'll get to pretty much straight to it. But before we do, don't forget to, of course, do all the usual. Like these videos if you are enjoying them. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And of course, drop me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. Let me know what you're up to in your hobby and how you've got on with the past 20 issues. I know there's quite a few of you who are still trying to catch up because of, well, the amount of stuff we've had, especially on the orc side of things here. And there are some of you who are still, well, on the early issues due to very limited hobby time. But yeah, it's all in all been quite a good journey the past few issues. Finally then, don't forget, of course, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. It's coming up to Christmas, so if you're looking for some extra gifts for your hobby friends, do check them out. They have a good selection of stuff at very reasonable prices. They also stock the full Games Workshop range through Disc Games. So if you're looking for something extra special, check out what they've got in stock and you might just find your next hobby project or the one for your friend at a bit of a discount. So without further ado, let's get into our 20 issue review. And well, it's a pretty amazing set of issues, really. So I can't believe we've gotten through 20 issues already. It's the end of the year and the last one was, well, back in summertime, so less than 6 months ago, I think. But I've also just had my latest delivery, so I'll be filming that unboxing after I finish filming this and possibly after my phone's charged, depending on how much battery I end up with. I've also, oops, dropping dice, received a replacement, seeing as I'm running out of Astra Granite and I use quite a lot of it. I've picked up some of AK's Wargame Terrain Lunar Desert. So it looks like it's a fairly light colour on the outside, but it's actually a lovely dark colour and should hopefully match up nicely for Astra Granite. So that's a lot cheaper and a lot more content than buying the, oops, I'm dropping everything today, the Astra Granite tub. So what do we get here? We get 24mm of texture paint against 100mm here. So that's already 4 times the amount for about double the price. Because these are like £4 something, that was £9.99. So yeah. That should hopefully last me a good while, finishing off the collection and, well, all my other stuff that I paint with Astra Granite, which isn't as much as normal, as most of my other stuff goes for a deserty scheme. Right then, let's get into this, shall we? So we'll start off as usual with our patrol overviews. We'll kick things off then with the orcs. So let's start with the boys who are green and not just in it. The Orcs Patrol is just pure orc. Loads of boys, a boss, and plenty of cobbled together death machines. As someone who started in 5th edition with the box set, this really reminds me so much of Assault and Black Reach. It's really only missing the 5 knobs. Plus we do have the added Death Dread and the Boom Dagger there as well. Speaking of the Boom Dagger, it really adds that classic orky charm from the older editions, thinking the Gorka Morka game, which was literally orcs versus orcs and involved a lot of ramshackled vehicles. And yeah, that really does, the Combat Patrol screams orky. So you've got a good selection. Like I said, you've got your war boss here, you've got 2 squads of boys to back him up. You've got your Death Copters for a faster unit, the Death Dread adds some punch, and you've got your Boom Dagger Snazwagon, which swaps out the Death Copters for something a little bulkier and shootier. And yeah, I don't know, I'm going to probably enjoy using both as equally, really. They both have their quirks. The Death Copters would be good for backfield objectives. The Boomdacker does have quite a amount of firepower output at least. So painting these guys though isn't the easiest. The guides will tell you to apply light colours over a dark undercoat, which results in a lengthy layering process, especially for that green skin on the orcs. Personally, I think we'd use the orc flesh as the base coat. I know it doesn't cover all that great anyway. It might have been a lot easier for things. Then we could have applied the darker colours over the top of the orc flesh. Either that or used perhaps even Mechanica Standard Grey as a base coat. Is a nice mid sort of colour, and you can go light or dark either way with it, which is ideal. Either that, or we could have had Caliban Green a little bit earlier on, and that would have been a nice base coat, and then we could use the Orc Flesh to layer up, and we wouldn't have had to bother with the all-over shade of Coelia Green shade and then the relayer of Orc Flesh, because you could have just done the Caliban Green and picked out the higher areas in the Orc Flesh. We're far from done on the skin. We've still got highlighting to do, which I believe is in one of the issues in this latest delivery. As is for the orc skin, it's okay, but I always prefer my orcs a bit darker. I'd have preferred either War Flesh or Castellan Green for a real sort of leathery green sort of skin tone. But that's just personal preference really there. So for the expansion of this combat patrol into a full 1000 point force, what have I gone for? Well, I'm a big fan of the Blood Axes and their love at mocking or copying other races' tactics. So we've gone for the Blood Axe Tactical Brigade Detachment. So we've actually added in Snickrot, who is a bonus model with the collection if you're a subscriber through Hachette. So he's perfect for adding to the Blood Axes, as he's one of the Blood Axe's sneakiest git. I've also given the army a unit of commandos for him to lead. And as we get Storm Boys becoming battle line in the detachment, I've added a unit of 10 of these to add that extra shock theme to it. As for the boys, well, I've chucked 2 trucks into the army for them to jump into. I was toying with the idea of adding the killer cans from the premium kit, but I elected not to do that. I think I have included the Boomdacker. I will double check. But yeah, I think I did add the Boomdacker as well. So we've got pretty much everything from the collection. And I've added in some extra stuff to help with the Blood Axe theme. So yeah, very awesome and orky. Moving on then to the Leagues of Votann. So this patrol was hotly anticipated by a lot of people, myself included. And as one of the newest factions in 40k, they do have little to choose from. But a recent 10th edition New Wave has bolstered their forces, adding in quite a lot, especially to the Chthonian Berserk side of things and the Iron Here side of things. We've also had some awesome stuff thanks to Kill Team, which has been especially nice with the Hernkin Jaegers, a off-truck or off-bike version of the Pioneers. But yeah, we've had a good selection of stuff for the magazine. The bonus unit here, the Iron Here, really add a nice elite tough unit to the force. They replace the Chthonian Berserks, which aren't my favourite unit in the combat patrol. I'll get more onto that later on. But yeah, we do get a good selection. So we've got our default leader in the form of a Carl here. So good choice model, loads of different options you can give him. The combat patrol's gone for the Volkite and a Fist. You could also give him an axe, a sword, or a Stormbolter instead of the Volkite. We got our speedy unit in the form of the Hernkin there, as I said, the Hearthkin Warriors and our basic troops. And then the Chthonian Berserks there add a little bit of a not so armoured force to the troops there as a specialist unit. And then the Iron here add a pretty much elite unit to the combat patrol. For the most part, painting these guys are very similar to Space Marines, although we do have a bit more of softer material in the form of the fatigues and the leathery armour panels, such as knee pads and elbow pads, etc. Other than that, yeah, pretty much the same as Space Marines. We've got armour panels, bits of bear skin here and there, and, well, weapons, which have very Imperial-esque theme to them. Berserks do give a little bit difference when it comes to painting. Yeah, it feels a little more like Tyranids, where you got a lot of bare flesh and a little bit of sort of armory panels to add extra detail to them. But yeah, really, I've enjoyed the Legs of Votan a little more than I thought I would have done. They never really been an army that drew me to them. They're really just shorter, different play style versions of Space Marines, effectively. The basic gun is a bolt gun, although we have the ion blasters on our combat patrol guys. And yeah, there's not a lot of difference between these and the Imperial factions, so it's a nice sort of in-between. It mixes a bit of guard, I suppose, with the fact we have lots of big infantry with light armor, and then we do have the Space Marine side of things with the Iron here and the Cars and stuff, which have a little bit more heavier armor. Right, getting back to what I was mentioning about the Chthonian Berserks. In expanding this force, I have done something totally different. I have removed the Chthonian Berserks. This is personal preference, but it helps keep more, I think, with the Kronos hegemony scheme that I'd like to go for, focusing more on the Hernkin, the Hearthkin, the Hernkin, and the Iron here. So for a unit, I've added the Grimnir, mostly because I have it, and I do like the wizard. It's a space dwarf wizard in space, pretty much. So yeah, added him to the army. I've also added a second unit of the Hearthkin warriors and 2 Sagittars to add mobility. So I believe the Sagittars are only a 5 or 6 man transport capacity, but it means you can break down your one of your units of Hearthkin into 2 units, add a character, and then put both into transports while your other unit stays back on the objective. I've also equipped each one differently, so we've got one of a bit more long range support, one of a little bit more close range support, weaponry. And finally then, I have added probably the biggest thing I've ever added to any of these patrols, and that's the mighty Hecaton Land Fortress. I really wanted to add one mainly because it's probably one of the best models in the Votan collection, but also it really does scream the Kronos hegemony with their reliance on heavy armor and brutal assaults. And yeah, it's a perfect sort of vehicle to emphasize that. And I think both these forces roughly come to 990 to 1,000. So yeah, all in all, really good forces. I have had a couple of enhancements on characters. I'll put those up in text form throughout this description. But there we go, that's how I personally expand these 2 forces. And yeah, I think it's 2 good ways of doing it. You could go totally different ways. I mean, focusing more on the Jaegers and the Hernkin there would be a good way of doing it. Although we don't have many Hernkin characters at the moment for the combat for the collection. You could focus more on Berserks, as we've had, like I said, a recent wave of Chthonian models added, and we are getting soon a Chthonian Berserk character for possibly this 500 Worlds system that's coming out very soon. But yeah, I've made use of what limited stuff we do actually have. Right, moving on to part 2, the additional hobby supplies we've gotten. So this wave of paints has mostly been layer paints, as we've been adding finishing touches to the models we've had in our collection previously. So we had Pallid Witch Flesh, Pink Horror, Night Questor Flesh, Cowgirl Blue, and Stormhost Silver, adding some much needed details to our models. We've also had a brand new shade in the form of Coelia Green Shade, which is used on all of our Orc skin. And we've also reached our basing stage in issue 42 with the Astrogranite Technical Paint. So yeah, was it 42? No, 44, sorry, we had it. Texture Spreader and Astrogranite was in issue 44. So we finally based our collection, and yeah, it's been pretty good. It's a nice way unifying all of our collections together, although a lot of people will say choose a basing scheme that complements your colours. So if you've got a rather light colour scheme, go for a darker base. If you've got a darker colour scheme, go for a lighter base. Which is probably why the Kronos Hegemony models do sort of kind of blend more to their base than, say, the Tyranids would do. So yeah, luckily though, just painting with the texture paint, as there's no other details added on, it wouldn't be too hard to repaint over with some Zandri Dust, Agrax Earthshade, and a dry brush of Carrick Stone, which is how I do my deserty scheme. But all in all, it's been good. The paint guides are getting much more detailed now. We only have 2 more paint issues to go. We've had one, which was Caliban Green and Wild Rider Red. So we're adding some final details to Space Marines with the reds and the green highlights. And we'll be in some of the future issues that have just recently arrived to us. We'll be adding details to our Boomdacker, finishing that off, and any other areas of colour we haven't finished. So plasma blades, red loincloths, etc. After that, we just have the paint issue to arrive, which won't be until we start looking at Arcadians, and we'll get our final 2 colours, which will be White Scar and Ural Yellow, adding some final highlights to all of our yellow details and our whites as well. But yeah, we haven't had much in the way of hobby stuff, just a few layer paint issues, and of course our basing paint, which is probably our biggest one. And now that we've got pretty much all of our paint issues, we will see more in-depth detailed paint guides. Finally then, before I give you my final thoughts, let's take a look at the gaming supplies. So we've had our usual data cards. I've got a few more here than we have actually had in this wave, as issue 40 gave us the data cards and the 2 terrain cards for the Orc Combat Patrols. I believe they also included the 2 bonus cards for the Chaos Space Marines and the Eldari, so those are in there as well, which is why they came with that Eldari issue. We've also had the first of our next 2 and last 2 game mats, giving us the awesome Mechanicum Wasteland on one side and a ruined deserty Imperial Cardinal world on the other side with lots of Imperial ruins. But yeah, pretty cool. I'm looking forward to some of the future cards. I'll be interested to see what cards I get in my issue with the Gene Sealer Cults, as I have seen one video and the cards have been misprinted, and for some reason we've been given new Eldari cards, despite the fact that apparently there's no differences to them whatsoever, which is very weird. So I think it might have just been a mispackaging error, and this should have been the Gene Sealer Cult cards, as we did receive the rest of the Gene Sealer Cult cards in it. But there we have it. That's pretty much all of our hobby supplies. The only other thing we did have was we did get some judgment tokens. I haven't shown them here, but they were cutouts with issue 51 when we had the Carl. So yeah, nice little additional usable thing for playing our games with Votann. Right then, on to the magazine content and the final thoughts of this magazine. So there's not a lot to say here. It's pretty much going to be a repeat of what I've said in previous deliveries. We've had a good amount of lore and short stories, mostly focusing on our brand new 2 factions, the Orcs and the Votann. We've also had a little bit more for Chaos Space Marines and Eldari, and as we're starting Gene Sealer Cults, the last few issues of the Orcs have even included them as a little bit of a focal point. The only good thing that has been added into this, which I was meant to mention in the gaming supplies, is the campaign system that's been added. So since issue, I think it's 51, we had the start of our campaign, and it's been a nice way to link our games. I'm definitely going to be toying with it and modifying it into a bit of a better system. I'm going to be looking more like a territory capture and control sort of system, but still utilizing much of the missions, etc., and layout and premise of the initial campaign system. So yeah, it's a nice additional piece to the collection. Really makes things a little bit more fun. The campaign system from Imperium was quite nice. Never got around to playing it though. But it had this nice backwards and forwards sort of pull, but that was only because we had 2 factions to deal with. This one we've got 9, so there's a lot more for us to deal with. And so a much more complex campaign system I think was required, and they've really presented it really well. The missions do look nice, well thought out. It's just going to be kind of hard to link the flavored missions in games in order to get the victories that the flavor text sort of tells you to. So it's going to be kind of hard to guarantee Space Marines will beat Eldar, Tyranids, and World Eaters in a row, because it could go for either side really based on the dice rolls. Other than that, we've had the usual scenarios that's mainly to help us introduce our new units. They've been quite fun. Some have been really quirky and odd, like the race against the Space Marine Chaplain with the Boomjack and Snazwagon. I did like the Meat Grinder mission where we had the Death Dread up against a variety of different foes. That was a fun one. I did like the Space Hulk kind of mission as well, where the Cavonian Berserks faced off against Tyranids, which ended up in a horde sort of slaying mode with the rest of the leagues of Votan force protecting a claimed site of resources. Other than that, it's been fun little additions to the collection. I wish I could think of more, but really I have covered everything that we've had. So to recap, sort of good lore, great gaming articles. We've had most of the main core rules now, so the campaign has been a nice addition. And the training scenarios have been fun, or sometimes just straight up bizarre. But yeah, we've now also hit the halfway mark, so we do have some more exciting stuff to come. We are just about to start the Gene Stealer cults. I've got my Magus still undercoated, waiting to be painted when I finish filming issue 61. We've got our second mat, which came with issue 61, which I forgot to film in the introduction, but I will film when I start filming the paint guide section. And yeah, the next 30 issues are going to be something fun and interesting. So like I said, Gene Stealer cults, then we're going to be doing the Guard, which we don't actually get the full Guard combat patrol till after we've had the additional units, which is very odd. So we get the heavy weapons team and the Jackals, and then we get the Sentinel over 2 issues after that before the World Eaters start. But yeah, the World Eaters are going to be their final combat patrol, and that's going to be interesting to see how they present everything, because by that point we've had all our paints, we've learned all our techniques, so hopefully paint guides will be a lot more in-depth, so meaning we can take everything we practiced over the past 80 issues and put them into perfection sort of practice over the last combat patrol. There we have it. That is our last 20 issues down. 2 more patrols added to our collection. So let me know what you thought of these 2 patrols in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this video. How would you have modified the armies into 1000 point forces? Let me know as usual in the comment section down below. All that's left for me to do then is to say thank you all very much for watching and following me on this journey as we've gone through these last 20 issues. Hope you've enjoyed this video and that you'll join me as we move into issue 61 and to our last 3 combat patrols. And I will see you all next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.